You think you are supporting a small business. When your AC breaks in the middle of July, you call the local HVAC guy who has had his name on the side of a van for 20 years. When your car breaks down, you take it to the neighborhood mechanic you trust. But you aren't paying the local mechanic, and you aren't paying the neighborhood plumber. You are wiring your money directly to a multi-billion-dollar private equity fund in New York. Over the last decade, Wall Street realized that the stock market was too crowded. So, they quietly moved into your neighborhood. They are executing a strategy called the Main Street Roll-Up, aggressively acquiring local businesses like HVAC companies, plumbers, and auto repair shops. They keep the old family name on the door so you don't get suspicious. But they fire the senior staff, implement aggressive corporate pricing algorithms, and bleed your local economy dry. This is the death of the American small business. And by the end of this video, you will understand the exact mathematical formula they are using to do it. To understand the trap, you have to understand the math. Private equity does not build businesses. They engineer financial arbitrage. They identified that the fragmented home services industry in the U.S. alone generates $657 billion in annual revenue. This strategy involves buying multiple smaller companies and consolidating them into a larger corporate entity. Here is how the glitch works. Let's say a private equity fund buys 5 local auto repair shops. Individually, these are small mom-and-pop shops. In the financial world, a small business is typically valued at roughly 3 to 4 times its annual profit. If the shop makes $500,000 a year, the fund buys it for $2 million. But Wall Street plays by different rules. When a massive corporation goes public or gets sold, it isn't valued at 3 times its profit. Because of its size and market dominance, it is valued at 10, 12, or even 15 times its profit. So, the private equity fund buys 50 local mechanics at a 3x multiplier. They roll them all up into one giant holding company. They haven't improved the service. They haven't invented a new product. But simply by packaging them together, that massive holding company is now magically worth 12 times its profit. They bought your local mechanic for pennies, packaged him with 50 others, and sold the bundle for $1 billion. It is a legal money printer, and you are the one funding it. But the financial arbitrage isn't enough for them. Once they own the shop, they have to squeeze the margins. When private equity buys your local garage, the first thing they do is strip out the old management and install centralized, cloud-based software platforms. They do not care about fixing your transmission. They care about data extraction and upselling. The software tracks every single customer. It flags your car based on its mileage and algorithmically generates a list of recommended preventative maintenance that the mechanic is now corporately mandated to sell you. The guy behind the counter isn't a mechanic anymore. He is a sales rep with a quota enforced by a dashboard in Manhattan. This is why a simple oil change suddenly turns into a high-pressure sales pitch for a $600 fluid flush. They are applying Silicon Valley software metrics to your brake pads. They want to turn your vehicle maintenance into monthly recurring revenue. They do the same thing to HVAC. They do the same thing to veterinary clinics. If you have noticed that taking your dog to the vet suddenly costs 3 times what it did 5 years ago, it is because a private equity firm bought the clinic, fired the senior vets, and mandated algorithmic pricing on blood work. Here is the most insulting part of the entire operation. They aren't even using their own money to buy these businesses. They use a mechanism called a leveraged buyout, or an LBO. When the fund buys your local plumber for $10 million, they only put down $2 million of their own cash. They borrow the other $8 million from a bank. But they don't hold the debt themselves. They force the plumbing company to take on the debt. Let that sink in. They buy a healthy, debt-free local business. They loaded up with massive corporate debt to pay for their own acquisition. Now, that local plumber has to drastically raise prices on you, the consumer, just to generate enough cash to pay the interest on the loan that Wall Street used to buy them. You are literally paying the mortgage on your own economic enslavement. The middle class used to have a safety net. If the corporate world laid you off, you could start a small business. You could open a repair shop, build a local brand, and secure your family's future. That exit door is closing. You cannot compete with a private equity fund that has unlimited access to cheap debt and predatory pricing software. They are buying the board. The local economy is being hollowed out. But this is just the ground-level operation. If you think what they are doing to your neighborhood mechanic is terrifying, wait until you see the math behind what they are doing to your retirement account. Hit subscribe to join the architecture. And if you want to see how Wall Street is already monopolizing the physical energy grid that powers this entire system, click the video on your screen right now.